Dear Steve Sweeney, Morningstar International Editor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be back again.
Thank you. You were in Kurdistan. You have just arrived to UK. What is the updates from the ground? What you bring us from there?
Well, as you've probably seen, if you read the Morning Star or you've been following events on largely on social media. There's a deep crisis unfolding in Kurdistan at the moment, and it started really with the demonstrations over a failure to pay public sector workers. Many of them, teachers, nurses, haven't been paid properly since March or April this year. I think they've received, or those that have received salaries have received, only 4 payments over the course of the year, and even those payments themselves have been hit by huge cuts of 20%. So there's been a strike that's been ongoing amongst public sector workers since October, and just last week the protests started in Slimani, mainly in the city centre there, which is where the action started. And of course that was met with a violent response from the authorities, who it was a peaceful protest as well, and it was met by a volley of tear gas and live bullets. One of the opposition MPs from the Goran movement was knocked unconscious during this protest. This was last Thursday, so Wednesday and Thursday. But then since then the protests have spread, and they've become more about more than public sector pay and a poor infrastructure. Now they've grown into these very large protests against corruption, against nepotism, and they're targeting the main political parties. So the Barzani, the Kurdistan Democratic Party, are the main target of the protests, and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, but also the Goran movement have been targeted as well. So what we've seen is, while protesters have taken to the street in anger, they've been met with, like I said, they've been had tear gas fired upon them, live bullets. So there's been a number of people killed, 9 so far. And there's signs that's that there could be more by the time that this is broadcast. 2 children amongst those dead: a 13-year-old boy who was shot in the neck, and a 15-year-old student as well that's been among the dead, and they're mainly young people. So in retaliation, they've targeted an anger really with the sort of the corruption and the nepotism amongst the political parties. They've burnt down the offices of the KDP and the PUK and the Goran movement. It's mainly been focused in Slimani province at the moment, but there's signs that it's starting to spread. In Erbil, it's obviously a little bit harder for people to protest because it's dominated by the Kurdistan Democratic Party. At the same time, the protests are happening. The media is being stopped from reporting on it accurately. So those media outlets that are critical of the government, and in particular critical of the KDP, for example, NRTV had their offices raided and equipment confiscated, and they've been hit with a broadcasting ban, so they've been shut down. The internet is being severely restricted as well, so people are, it's very difficult to get accurate information out of the region, but people are doing what they can. But this is a very serious situation developing in the region, and it's a deep crisis, and it's difficult to see at the moment how this is going to be resolved.
So basically, as you know, the APPG's inquiry is on as well, and it's ending tomorrow. Also, what is your observation? What else needs to be get done? Do you think the Europe can have any impact on the ground? What's happening in there?
Well, I mean, it has to, just to start off with, I mean, there has been a wall of silence really from the international community over what's happening, and there's the situation's absolutely critical. There's peaceful protesters that are being fired upon by government forces, and people are saying to me, look, the streets of Kurdistan are running red with the blood of our children, and they're appealing for for something. But what they want is deep and meaningful political change, and you mentioned the APPG. Now I know that there's two of them, parallel APPGs. One that deals with Kurds in Syria, in Turkey, and in Iran. But I have to say that the APPG for Iraqi Kurdistan is not fulfilling its role properly, and it's not said anything about the current situation. In fact, just recently, I followed them on social media. Members of that APPG were shamefully showing photographs of themselves with pomegranates from Halabja. Well, in Halabja, people are being battered on the streets at the moment, and they're demanding political change. And it's shameful to say, but the APPG is operating as the mouthpiece of the Barzanis in Westminster, and it needs to fundamentally change. Because at the moment, as it stands, it's not fit for purpose. What we really don't want is outside intervention, and this is the Prime Minister said. Barzani said in a press conference yesterday, a rambling press conference it was, that he blamed Syria, he blamed the foreign outside hands and foreigners for stoking the protests. The day before, and some of the Barzani associated media like Rudao and Kurdistan 24 have been spreading peddling the lie that it's the PKK that are responsible for violence, but that's not true. This is the people rising up against a corrupt and broken political system, and this is them exercising their voice, and they want it's change that they want. Outside intervention, I don't know if that's particularly helpful at this stage, but what needs to happen is there needs to be democratic change within the region. At the moment, as you'll know, and for decades, it's been dominated by two families, essentially the Barzanis and the Talibanis. Now there's issues around that the Barzanis, the government is trying to, KRG is trying to blame Baghdad for the impasse and saying that they're not releasing their portion of the federal budget to Kurdistan, and they're blaming a drop in oil prices and COVID-19. Now some of this might be true, but there's been a pretty poor deal struck with Turkey, actually, where where huge sums of money are leaving the region in this 50-year deal, but huge sums remain. And this is what people are saying: where is the money? Where is that oil money? And they're asking why they're living in poverty and struggling to provide basics. I mean, we have electricity shortages with Kirkuk oil field, the world's second largest oil field, just up the road, and we're suffering electricity shortages across the region. But they're living lives of luxury, a playboy lifestyle, while it's poverty for the rest of the country. Now, this is you'll know the Kurdistan region is rich in natural resources. There are many kind of particularly oil, but there's many other things. It should be rich, a rich part of the world.
Very short, very briefly, what is the updates from the Mahmud camp?
Well, I've spoken to people in Mahmur, and again, this is additional to the protests that are sweeping across the region. This huge anti-government uprising. At the same time, of course, the KDP forces, the Peshmerga forces, have mobilised, as we know, to Shengal. And there's fear of an invasion there. We don't know what's going to happen there, but after the security deal, which was stitched up behind the backs of the people there to break the influence they want of the PKK, and the same with Mahmur. Mahmur is still under an embargo, but from the United Nations. We know there's been a COVID-19 outbreak, and people there are very, very fearful of what's going to happen. They tell me that Turkish jets are flying overhead every single night, jets and drones, and there's the very real threat of bombs dropping there. But I have to say that we have to say that what's happening, the instability in the region at the moment, and the government turning on its own people, creates a situation that could see ISIS get a foothold back in the region, and nobody really wants to see that. This is a very volatile situation, and it has the potential to destabilize not just the Kurdistan region, but the whole of the Middle East too. We're in it's a really critical stage, really critical stage at the moment. These are quite dangerous times, but the people on the streets are saying, look, there's been 9 people that have been shot dead 9 people, including 2 children, a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, two boys, have been shot dead by Peshmerga forces. There's cracks showing in the ruling parties. One of the leading PUK officials today scoffed at Barzani's claim about foreign influence. There's talk of Peshmerga in some of the PUK-controlled regions saying that that they'll defy orders. Not only will they refuse to attack the protesters if they're asked to do so, but they'll turn on the KDP. So this also has the potential of spilling into an intra-Kurdish civil war as well. And we know that the KDP have Peshmerga. I was in Kandil last weekend, and we were celebrating the anniversary of the foundation of the PKK. But the people there were telling me that there's thousands of Turkish troops in the Kandil Mountains with KDP forces. They're working together. Just today, and I've written, it will appear in tomorrow's Morning Star newspaper. But I've written a story that says that Turkish troops are actually in the KDP controlled areas of Iraqi Kurdistan now. There was video footage of them sharing, being welcomed and fed, in a traditional Kurdish welcome with lots of food. But there were Turkish soldiers, and whether they're going to be deployed on the streets to quell protests. What's happened now is the opposition parties have requested a demonstration in Erbil, and they've asked for permission for this. It's likely to be denied, but now protests and illegal gatherings have been banned, and the government says that they'll arrest people that defy those orders. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. What's needed on the ground, I think, at the moment, what's missing is any kind of organizational leadership. At the moment, there's kind of a spontaneous reaction of the people, and there's no sign of them backing down. And they say that they're going to stay on the streets and they'll keep protesting until the government resigns, and that's what they're calling for.
Very short, very briefly again, what is the exact message from the Kurdistan to the groups like APPG and some institutions that are working on the Kurdish struggle? What is the exact message from the community from Kurdistan?
Well, what they're saying is very, very clearly they want their voices to be heard. And at the moment, that's not happening. They want their voices to be heard. They want the truth to be told. They told me to come back and speak to people, speak to MPs, speak to trade unionists, speak to progressives, and tell the truth about what's happening on the ground. They're saying, look, they're very aware of what's happening here, and they're calling on the imperialist powers to stop their blanket support for President Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey. They're to stop their blanket support for Barzani and stop propping up these brutal regimes that are killing Kurds. Now, we know once you pull the mask, standing behind Barzani is Tayyip Erdogan, and standing behind Tayyip Erdogan are the forces of imperialism. Now, we know that they're colluding. They have overlapping interests. U.S. imperialism wants to grab oil and resources and control of the Middle East and of the region, whereas Tayyip Erdogan's aim is the genocide of the Kurdish people. Now, these happen to be overlapping. People, when I've spoken to people, they're actually really they're angry, but they're deeply, deeply hurt. And they're hurt because they're seeing what they call their brothers, their Kurdish brothers, that are turning their guns against them. This is what they're saying. They want peace. They want Kurdish unity, and that's what they're calling for. But they're also calling for that to be reflected in within the APPG and amongst the national community. And they want the truth to be told happening. Not the lies that are being spun at the moment. I was, unfortunately, PPG for Iraqi Kurdistan is not doing its job properly. I was aware of a briefing that was given to MPs and trade unionists last Friday by a massive PR coup that was given to the KDP and Barzani at the same time that they were being briefed about stability and the situation in the region. People were out on the streets being shot this is what was happening, and they're being dangerously misled. And what we need is international solidarity, and that means progressive organisations and trade unionists actually now standing up in solidarity with the people of Kurdistan.
With your observations and your experience, do you think is it a war likely to happen, or a civil war can, or any kind of conflict can explode in a second? What is your observations from the ground? Very short, very briefly, please.
I think it has the potential to explode into a deadly intra-Kurdish civil war. We saw this again between the PUK and KDP in the 90s. 30,000 people at least. That's a conservative estimate. Were killed during that conflict. And we know that the KDP is driving to war. And we've seen this as I said, in the Kandil Mountains. They're working with Turkish troops there, and they've threatened the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, in those regions. They're engaging with them in the Gara Mountains regions as well. While at the same time this is happening, Turkish jets are bombing the border region, and they're targeting civilians and infrastructure. So there's a drive to war. This drive to war, I have to say, is opposed. There's kind of a united anti-war front from all the opposition parties, including PKK. But this, it also includes PUK, the Goran movement, the Kurdistan Communist Party. All the opposition parties are united against the war. The people are opposed the war. So I mean, there's a huge weight of of opinion behind a war. But with the street protests that are happening, if they're still killing children and they're still killing the people of Kurdistan, then it could develop into a civil war. That's a very, very real danger. And the danger is that this instability doesn't just stick. We're seeing instability in central, in the Iraqi central government region as well. There's been huge political instability there, but this really has the danger of allowing ISIS to get a foothold back in the region, and again in the Middle East. That's a very real danger. That's why we absolutely have to do everything. Everybody who is a trade unionist, whether you're a parliamentarian, a progressive, a Labour Party member, a Green Party member, an SNP member, or whatever, every single sinew and every effort should be made into stopping this war. That's an absolute must at this stage.
Is this Sweeney, Morningstar International editor? Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the updates from the Kurdistan, the fresh and the updates from the first person. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.